Hello everyone, welcome back to this course. So far, we have come a long way in our Express.js learning journey. In the last lecture, we successfully built a functional task manager API that demonstrated the practical use of routing, middlewares, and error handling, all within a single file that was index.ts in our previous lecture. However, in real world applications, maintaining all logic inside one file is neither scalable nor maintainable. As the application grows in complexity, multiple features, multiple route implementations, different business logic for every route implementation, integration with external services, error handling, and things like validation, putting everything into a single index.ts file becomes chaotic. So in this lecture, we will shift our focus away from coding new features and instead focus on the code organization part, which is an essential foundation for routing production level Express.js applications. In case you would want to know why modularization is important, well, it helps us in multiple ways. The very first thing is separation of concerns, which will allow business logic, routing, and the configuration to be kept separately. Next is the scalability, which allows ease to extend with new modules or entities. Next would be maintainability, which makes projects and applications easier to debug as well as test. And probably other thing would be the collaboration part of it, which will allow teams to work on separate modules without any conflict at all. So what I have done is I have already created a directory called Express Project Structure here. And today we are just going to be talking about which all files and folders we should be creating inside an Express.js project that is powered by TypeScript. So the very first thing that I would like to do here is to open a terminal so that I can initialize this directory as an npm project, and I could also create a tsconfig.json file in the current directory. So the first thing is I wish to create it as a Node.js project. So I am going to run the command npm init y. We have used this y flag in order to initialize our project with the default settings, and we will be continuing doing that. So the moment I hit enter, it would create a package.json file. As you all know, package.json file is going to help us in maintaining the dependencies and the external packages of our project. In addition to that, we can specify certain scripts that we can also run using the npm tool itself. And those scripts would essentially help us in running our application, building our application, or things related to that. Now, once I have initialized my current directory as a Node.js project, the next thing I would like to do is I would like to create a tsconfig.json file. So in order to do that, I am going to make use of TSC, the TypeScript compiler, which is already globally installed in my system. And I am going to pass this init flag to it. And the moment I hit enter, it is going to create this tsconfig.json file. And as you all can remember, this is going to come with a lot of options, a variety of options, and we would be using only a few of them. And for now, I would replace this file with the pre-made configuration that we have been using so far while developing the Express.js applications, using TypeScript. As and when we will move forward, and whenever we realize the need of using any additional settings here, we shall be updating or constantly updating this tsconfig.json file as we proceed further into the course. So here, as we are specifying that the root directory is going to be the source directory. That means the very first thing that I require here is a folder called src. All right. So this src folder is there, and just like we used the entry point of our application to be index.ts in our previous lecture as well, I would like to do the same thing here too. I am going to create this index.ts file inside my src directory, which is going to serve as the entry point to my application as well. If we want, we can even write some boilerplate code here, simple Express.js server instantiation, all of that. But for that, we would be required to install the Express packages and along with other types for that and the types for Node.js as well. But for now, we shall skip that part because the focus in today's lecture is to create a proper folder structure for our project of Express.js. Now, after defining this index.ts file, which is going to serve as the entry point to our application, one thing that we would be using a lot in any Express.js application is going to be the integration with external services, or probably using some external services. And one of the examples could be integrating any database itself. So for specifying all those dependencies or the external integrations that we will be having in our code base, I am going to create a folder config for that. And specifically for databases, I am going to create a folder named data sources inside this folder. Now, what is this data sources folder? More details on this will probably be provided in the upcoming lectures when we are going to learn about a new ORM that we are going to use for this course. And data sources folder is going to contain one data source that will be specific to one database that our application wishes to connect to. Now, in parallel to this config folder, I would create another file called database connection. Now, in the data sources folder, we are going to specify just the data source that would connect to one of the databases or the configuration for that particular database. Whereas in database connection.ts file, we are going to write the initialization code for all the databases that we are trying to integrate in our application. And in case we have any other external services that we wish to integrate in our project, we will put that configuration in our config folder itself. Let's say you want to use a Redis server, then you would want to put the connection details for the Redis server in this config folder itself. And we shall be adding those external services as and when we realize the need of using those in our project. Now, I would collapse this config folder as of now. And the next thing or the next folder that I would create here is going to be entity. Now, entity, many of you might be able to guess here. This is going to be the folder where we shall be keeping all the database entities that we will be working with in our Express.js application. Remember, in data sources, we are providing the configuration that is related to one specific database. One data source is going to correspond to one specific database. But what all tables will exist, what all columns, will each table contain, all of these details or all of that structure would be provided in this entity folder here, where we are going to list down all the tables that we are going to be working with in this particular application. Along with that, we would create a folder called environments. So environments is going to be a folder where we will keep all our environment variables configuration files. Now, generally what we do is we create different configurations for different types of environments, in which the application is getting built. Generally, in industry standards, we typically go with the 3 or 4 environments where, each organization would like to follow their, own structure. But let's say there is a staging environment that will come first. Then there is going to be the pre-prod environment, and then the prod environment will come. Some organizations might also introduce one more environment even before staging. That would be the dev environment. So typically there are 3 to 4 environments in every organization these days. So depending upon the number of environments that you wish your application to work with, you can define as many as configurations as you want. So for now, let's say I would create .env.staging. So this is going to be for staging environment. One I could create for say pre-prod environment, and one I could create for the prod environment. Right. So this is how you could create files for keeping your environment variables configurations. We shall be keeping it entirely in our environments folder. Apart from that, I would like to create a folder, let's say errors. Now this is, okay, this should not be a file. This is supposed to be a folder, errors. Now inside this folder, I am going to be keeping a bunch of files. The first file is going to be the error handler. Now, going forward into this course, what we are going to do is we are going to create a custom error handler. That means whenever we wish to, throw any error at any given point from any of the controllers that we are writing the implementation for, then instead of, returning the status code along with the required error message, what we shall do is we shall be throwing an error from a predefined class that we will create here in the error handler.ts file. The implementation for that we will be doing in the next session. For now, we are just focusing on the project structure. Other thing is going to be the the error response. This file is going to serve a very special use case or a very typical use case, which will help us in sending the response back to the user in case we wish to return an error. So error handler is going to help us in creating the instance, whereas error response.ts file is going to help us in sending that error response back to the client. And we will be coding it in such a way such that the message that goes back to the requesting client is as much descriptive as possible. Along with that, we could also create a file here called http codes. Now, this is going to be the file where we would be keeping an enum. Let's say we can create an enum here, which will be http status codes, or you could even name it http codes, depending upon whatever you want to. And inside this enum, you can specify what all status codes you would probably be working with in this particular application. For example, you might work with a status code called OK 200. Whereas, let's say you might want to work with created, and created generally happens for 201 status code. Similarly, you may have, say, conflict. Conflict generally comes in the place of 409. Then you could probably have, not found. As you might have guessed, we would be using 404 here. Apart from that, you may have bad request. And bad request is typically served with 400 status code. And we could have internal server error. So this is not something that any developer would want to, see in any application. But yeah, we shall be keeping it here for the enum. And if we realize the need of adding more values here, then we can definitely add more values too. Now, apart from this, other folder that I am going to be creating here is going to be the middlewares. Now, middlewares is going to be the folder where all the middlewares of this application are going to reside. Probably we are going to have a middleware dedicated for authentication purpose. Then we would be keeping that middleware definition inside this middlewares folder. Now comes one more important thing, which is going to be routers. Though we have not explored this concept in many details, but Express.js provides us a very efficient way of organizing multiple or different routes in a logical manner. And we shall be seeing the implementation for that again in the upcoming lectures. For now, what I'm going to do is I am going to create a file called, say, v1 router here, v1 router. And here inside the routers folder itself, I am going to create a folder called v1. So generally, when we are writing the applications, we keep long-term goals in mind. And we expect that over time, our application or the business logic for the application might change. And changing the business logic should not break the clients that are still communicating or interfacing with the previous version of the server, or let's say of your application. So generally what we do is, from the very start itself, we create all the routes as well as all the controllers version specific. So generally we add version kind of path parameter in every REST API endpoint that we share with the front-end developers, or that we keep in the client implementation, so that in case even if a major version of the application is deployed, then the existing clients or the existing applications that are still interfacing or communicating with the previous version of the server should not break. And we would be able to easily accommodate the new requirements by creating an entirely different folder and keeping that business logic entirely separate from the existing business logic for the previous version. So in the V1 folder of this routers folder, we are going to keep all the entities that exist in the V1 version of this server or this application. Just like this router, we are going to have a folder called controllers. So what happens is, these routers are going to call the functions from the controllers. And just like we have this V1 folder present in a routers folder, similarly, we are going to have this V1 folder present in a controllers as well. So that each version of the application or the server can have its own set of routers as well as controllers, which will allow us to separate the business logic for two different versions of the same application. All right, so this is going to be a top level overview of what all files and folders we should be having in a Express.js application that is suitable for production purpose. So far we have created a lot of files and folders, and we have skipped putting their implementation in the respective files. But as and when we are going to proceed further into this course, we shall be filling in those empty blocks, and soon we are going to build something really meaningful out of the folder structure that we have just created in today's lecture. So in the upcoming lectures, we are probably going to be integrating a database with our Express.js application and begin developing APIs based on the structured project setup that we have established today. So that's all for this lecture. Thanks for watching.